Não, eu não vi o vídeo e cara, assim, eu já treinei contra times vietnamitas, né? E eu assisti o campeonato deles e eu, visualmente, a Loud parece ser um time melhor mid-game, mano. Mas melhor taticamente. Mas... vamos nessa. Cortes na jogada, mano. Aff, tá em inglês, mano.
É isso que a gente vai ver quando eu amassar seu crânio.
We're gonna do like a multi-level analysis, and I'll tell you
É
guys
isso que a gente
what
vai
I
ver
know
quando eu
about
amassar seu
what I know about
crânio.
the game playstyle, mindset, strengths, weaknesses. You need to understand the core structure, and something that people don't understand about GAM is management in GAM haven't changed a single time. I believe a head coach has, but GM hasn't. Do you guys know this? And the core players,
A legenda tá aí.
and Levy, haven't changed. This is the main thing that you need to understand about GAM. And what are some characteristics about GAM? Well, let's look at the champion pool, right? Let's look at the champion pool. For me, when I think of GAM, I think of a really jungle-centric team. Right? Levy is the core carry. Kiaya finds good angles for Levi. They find lots of off-tempo plays on the map, right? Slash non-generic pathing. And the team plays well around Levi and his camp timers to defend his camps, defending Levi's jungle. And they play a lot of proactive junglers
mesmo essa liga
that either
vietnamita,
can
mano.
1v9, so like Lilia, or that can carry team fights. But maybe a bit slow to start.
Porque,
right?
tipo, eu assisti a
So what
final também, né? Mas tu assistir uma série, acho que não tem... Tu não consegue ter tanto uma perspectiva. Será que ela assistiu todo o campeonato vietnamita? Eu
Key
duvido.
kind of champions that you remember with Levi. For me, I remember Lee Sin. This is like the old style, right? I remember, you know, him playing a lot of these like Vi type champs. But this year, he's actually mostly been like a Wukong. He's actually, because Lee Sin hasn't been in meta, right? Wukong, Lilia, Sejuani player. But they've really found that like a lot of success on the Wukong and Sejuani, Wukong and Lilia, as well as Vi, right? So a lot of RA Vi combos, things like that. And what else? Well, we look at the goal differential. Win rate went ahead in 15 minutes. They have an extremely high win rate / close off rate because they snowball games really fast, right? We see an 88.9% win rate when ahead in 50 minutes. That's significantly high for any region. They have a 63% chance of hitting first tower. And when you look at the average dragons per game, 2.5, also very high, 1.23 heralds per game. So more than one herald every game. Basically, they never not get herald, basically. And so this comes to like some basic conclusions, right?
Mano, não tô entendendo muito. Ele tá falando só de draft só.
Heavy prior on early skirmishing and numbers on heralds. And they play very fast. Very fast.
Não, os caras trocam soco, mano. A gente assistiu o joguinho da Gama. Os caras só lutam o jogo inteiro, mano.
Vision. First on river. Over
Herald, gank pra caralho. Drake cedo.
Similar to LPL. AKA budget LPL. Alright, this is what we need to understand. Boa noite. Boa noite. And so that's basically what you guys need to know.
Eles jogam que nem, resumindo, eles jogam que nem LPL, só que são pior, mano. Mecanicamente e em tudo. Mas eles jogam pra ficar lutando, porra, gankando, divando, starta Drake, starta Herald.
Champion pool priority, you mostly see those proactive junglers. The exception has been Maokai and Ivan, right? And this is primarily because the combos with Ivan and Maokai were really OP. So Jace, Ivan, Tristana, Maokai, Tristana, Ivan were really, really OP. That's number one. And number two, Ivan was an answer to Maokai, which was the most OP champion in the game, right? But other than these two facilitators, and you can argue Sejuani, right, which is 13 games, the rest of his game, so about 17 games, have been played on carries. Right? You can see there's a very heavy preference for the carry side on Livy, and historically he's been that kind of player.
cara joga de tudo, filho.
Where he will find angles to do something in the early game for his team, right? And he has a wide champion ocean. This is what you need to know about them, right? They like a lot of LPL teams, they prefer very strong mid-jungle combos, right? They put heavy emphasis on mid-prio and what works for their team, right? I know this part because obviously I talked to Coach Hanke. So Coach Hanke is the strategic coach of GAM / head coach, and I like exchange information with him, right? About meta. I'm not going to leak anything because obviously, you know, I haven't spoken to him in months. So I'm not really like jeopardizing them as well. So just understand that what I'm doing here is ethical as well, okay? I'm not like fucking him over with friends. So this is what I know about GAM. Let's go straight into the analysis, okay? The only thing that I really want to talk about with GAM is their playstyle and some of the things that stand out about them. So, number one, I think Vietnamese laners in general are better than Brazilian laners. That's just my...
é que é?
I think Vietnamese
laners vietnamitas são melhores que os laners brasileiros no geral? Ai, Titano Mix não existe não, né, Seeel?
Brazilian laners. That's just my straight up opinion from what I've seen. I think that there are very few good Brazilian laners, particularly around solo lanes. The few good, like for example, Robbo is by far the best top laner in Brazil right now, or close to the top. I think the only guy that can kind of stand up to him are players like Guigo. But I mean, in general, they seem very incomplete from my analysis of Robbo. They make a lot of mistakes. They're not as consistent. They're not systemized. And the only exception to good laners in Brazil are either import Koreans, right, that are paid good amounts of money, that can play at mid to bottom LCK level, or like Tinones.
Ele tá falando todo mundo da Loud aí.
Even when I watched Pro Delta, I felt like his laning phase was really lacking. I felt like that B-Boy as well. I felt like Keto is not really a laner, right? And he's probably a top 3 laner over there, Pain Gaming, probably like top 2 even. And then there was another guy called Grevthar, who I thought doesn't play lane at all. He just moves around the map. He feels more like a Misty, right? So in general, not a very lane-centric region. So what we're really seeing here is like, I think Vietnamese players in general tend to have a lot more oppressive laners because they play against LPL Academy and LPL. Whereas I think in general, like, GAM players or Vietnamese players tend to be just a bit better in lane. Like, as you can see, this kind of level 1 trade does not happen. Tristana doesn't know how to walk up to the wave in Brazil. So yeah, Levy starts on the top side of the map, starts Raptors, goes into Krugs, obviously because Krugs spawn faster, full clears up, and normally what you would expect, and this is what I'm talking about.
Olha o Rob Sparda, mano, olha o Rob Sparda de Renek. Mano, alguém assistiu essa matchup, mano? Alguém assistiu essa matchup ontem, o Adam jogando contra o cara, espancando ele, de cima e embaixo? De Renek contra Caçante? Olha esse Rob Sparda, mano. 2 min jogo tá morto já de Renek, que porra é essa, mano? É Leiteiros Cup, mano. Essa Copa Vietnamita aí é Liberty Gun, mano.
Where it's normally Renekton favored.
Renekton 10 de vida com 2 min de jogo não existe, mano.
So this is the off-tempo gank I'm talking about. Levi actually invests a turn top. And this is kind of something that Kiaya does. This is the laning that I'm talking about. And for me, GAM players, specifically these two, are way above the level, similar to how like Tinones and Seels is way above the level of Europe.
O Adam espancou o Cortes nessa matchup.
But their lane phase and jungling and stuff is good enough to play against LPL. Right? And they use these turns and find really nice angles for themselves in which Lever finds a solo kill.
Sabe o que dói? Sabe o que é foda?
Similar, for me, this is kind of something that
Kiaya does. Eu vejo o Hobbs nessa situação aqui, mano. Do Sparda.
This is the laning that I'm talking
Level
about.
2 com 10 de vida tomando gank.
GAM players, specifically these two, are way above the level, similar to how like Tinones and Seels is way above the level of Europe, of Brazil, way above the level of this region. But their lane phase and jungling and stuff is good enough to play against LPL. Right? And they use these turns and find really nice angles for themselves in which Lever finds a solo kill, bases instantly, walks into bot side and full clears, right? So basically, as I said, jungle plays alone in Brazil. Here, Levi used the turn top. So he's really behind in tempo. And he needs to take topside raptors, right? No. Watch. Levi uses bot push, takes bot crab, and Tristana defends his topside raptors. Look. In Vietnam, the level of laners and synergy with jungle, specifically...
Não, na hora do jogo eu vou tirar os AD, né, guys?
They are an exception. They're way better.
Aí não, né?
Is much higher. Here, instead of basing and losing crab,
só vocês pedirem muito, né? Tipo, meu Deus, eu quero muito.
laner
Apesar que na Art Games tem.
That he has push,
que ontem eu tomei no jogo da BDS.
Defends second raptor respawn
Mas eu vou tirar.
with his ward. Look. So Catty on wave 4 timer, so wave 6 timer, second cannon timer, gets push on wave 4 and 5, moves before wave 6, wards and protects topside raptors, and Lilia can take an extra camp and then cross into top, which means it puts Levi extra ahead. Right? So Levi ends up doing his 3 camps top, ganking top, going bot, clearing 4 camps, so blue, gromp, wolves, bot scuttle, crosses into top, takes raptors, then takes Krugs. So he's already 1 camp up on Bing, just because he's been efficient and he has a kill, right? So number one thing, that for me, so I said, I think that
que isso, do nada.
60,
do nada, 40-60 pagando, do nada.
Jungle.
Ele tá falando de pathing, de galinha, de não sei o que lá, ele já corta seco pra isso, ele nem construiu nada.
Is way higher in other regions. This is the advantage number one. I think that Loud is pretty good, but their strengths are somewhere else. Like, for example, Robbo's good at drawing pressure. He has a lot of strengths as a player. I think he's a very good player in his own right. But he lacks some fundamentals, right? So, I mean, I think Cassante Renekton is winnable, by the way. So that's the first thing I see immediately. For me, when I look at Loud, I feel like it's more of like Croc just bending over and doing everything for his team alone.
É isso que a gente vai ver quando eu amassar seu crânio.
Croc has to be on tempo, Croc has to play around his laners. That's why he plays a lot of Sejuani. That's why Croc is stuck on Sejuani. That's why Croc is stuck on...
Cara, pra mim, o Brasil era 40-60 contra uma PSG, mano. Que, pô, tem bons players, né, de LPL. Agora, contra Marines,
facilitating
não é tão
champion.
ruim assim, não.
It's not that he will camp him. Levi will not camp top. Levi will just come top if Kiaya calls on good timers. Whereas Croc will be a slave, running around, making sure game doesn't blow up, because laning is a lot poorer. Even if Tinones is like, I think Tinones is probably the one solo laner that can do it better, but like Root Seos together, even though I think Seos is a good player, or Robbo, makes too many mistakes where I think that this is definitely a disadvantage. This is something that they can work on. I genuinely think that Loud have good players and they can win. I think Robbo is talented, Seos is just good, Tinones is good on his champions. Mages. And to be honest, Croc is just fucking good. Okay?
Cara, então vamos mundial, pô.
But not like crazy LCK top 3 level. Just for Brazil. Would be like root level / middle of pack LCK. Or middle bottom. Nothing insane. And this is coming from someone that actually coached Croc. But like definitely good for Brazil. I think Livy equals Croc, similar. Both are very similar. They're both shot callers. They both find good angles to team fight, etc. So number 2, let's have a look.
Eu não tô entendendo o ponto, porque nós é todo mundo fucking good, só que mesmo assim somos ruins ainda.
Both Gam and Loud, in pressure situations, are disciplined around fighting with numbers. This is even. I'll make this even, okay? So here they take the 3v3 and they're patient on the map. I noticed that Loud vs Pain, a lot of the big decisions were it just came down to Loud understanding that they needed to fight 3v3.
Bom pro Brasil,
right? Or they needed to have numbers before starting a fight. Or they needed to wait a specific cooldown. So that's a really good point about Loud. So there, I'd say this part is even. 3. I think Tinones over Catty. Catty kind of inter. Robbo mid of mid. But
é isso que a gente vai ver quando eu amassar seu crânio.
And he can be target banned. or counterpicked. Okay? Playing mages against Levi is not easy. Basically. No, but Catty's good but
isso que a gente vai ver quando eu amassar seu crânio.
It's like Robbo. Good but bad. Robbo is genuinely good, by the way. I think Robbo for Brazil is genuinely good. But do I think he's like fucking 369 or bin? Of course not, you know? Of course not. So 4. I'm just weighing down all the kind of pros and cons. Let's talk strengths, weaknesses, and compare.
Acho que eu derreti uma.
I think in general, when I looked at the level of VCS in general is way better at team fighting around objectives. They understand how to play modern League of Legends. And so yeah, VCS in general is way better at team fighting around objectives. This is because they scrim LPL and they scrim LCK Academy and they scrim PCS plus LJL.
Caralho,
they have
aquele PL, será?
lots of wide data. Makes sense. Whereas Brazil is like, how do I?
Vai esculachar nós.
Ilha das Bagre. No, Ilha das Bagre. Yeah. It's like, you're stuck. You're fucking stuck with idiots.
Que isso, cara?
Because, like, there are 3 good teams.
Mano.
Maybe. And if you're in playoffs, you're stuck scrimming with idiots. And you can't scrim versus LCS, can't scrim versus LLA because of shitty ping. Is this reasonable, what I'm saying? I'm pretty logical, no? I think I'm being fucking pretty logical. No flame. So yeah, I mean, I think just VCS
tô gostando disso.
or GAM over Loud
Tô gostando disso.
for now. The final thing I want to talk about is side laning. Basically, TLDR, I think Loud is a pretty good side lane team. I think Robbo and Tinones actually knows what to do. And Theos knows how to hover. And Croc probably listens here. Is my opinion. BCS puts too much emphasis.
Ele vai falar, Loud vai amassar essa Malines. Eu quero ver que ele vai fazer videozinho. Ai, que não. Que a Loud joga bem assim, assado, igual eu falei.
At a decent level. Where basically Loud have the win condition of playing side and farming way more efficiently. This is my opinion.
Puxa, mano, é de idiota, mano. Caralho, não consigo esquecer disso não, mano. Já tô
Loud tend
irritado
to
já, cara.
not group enough or play around control enough. So if I had to, but Seeel, okay, wait. Theos is just good, but mostly melees, especially Rakan. He is kinda just bad at mages. Sorry. So if I had to really think about it, for me, I think early game is always more important. Because when you think about a strong team versus a weak team, for example, you've heard of weak teams getting ahead early and just winning the game from snowball because a strong team made a mistake. But you never ever hear a weak team losing early and coming back. That's why, like, against strong teams, you need to know how to play aggressively. And this is like the teams like T1 or like whoever the fuck you're playing against, right? But how can you beat all these stronger teams than you when you're playing to scale? And I think Loud play to scale. I think Pain Gaming play to scale. They're more focused on winning their region, not actually getting better at the game. Whereas you can do both. You can be focused on just playing proper League of Legends. I just don't think that there's anyone in LCS, at least in my opinion, in LCS and CBLOL that actually teaches the game at that level. Just my opinion. So jungle lane synergy, I would definitely give to
que não tem coaches bons suficiente.
Just my opinion. In LCS, at least in my opinion, in LCS and CBLOL that actually teaches the game at that level. Just my opinion. So jungle lane synergy, I would definitely give to VCS. I think that early game is just better. I think Gam and Loud are pretty even in fighting their numbers. They have decent IQ. I think in terms of early lane phase, so I forgot about lane phase as well. Gam over Loud for a Gam over Loud in lane. I think there's a bit of a mid gap. So this is your hope, guys. Tinone's just fucking 1v9ing. But here's the problem. Tinone's over Catty on mages. Mages don't skirmish well early. So Gam over Loud early game. Again. Basically, like, I think Tinone's is good in a lot of ways, better than Catty, but they don't have the early game push that they need. So that's another big problem for me. So for your first 3 points, immediately I think that you're losing lanes in top. I think bot will be fine, but I think top will be either even or losing. Mid is scaling. Realistically, their jungler is more explosive and their team plays better around the jungler. And in general, I think that when Catty gets champion like Tristana, even against mages, he'll be able to get early prior. So even if Tinone's is better on mages, like, they're just going to be better at lane phase because they're going to have prior and they're going to use the jungle better. And then the saving grace is side laning. But this is if the game doesn't boom, right? And then there's also like team fighting, right? Sorry, team fighting, objective. Basically, to summarize, I think Gam have a better jungle identity. They know how to play around the jungler, whereas Croc has to mostly play alone. And the laners in Loud are a lot more selfish from what I saw. And they don't know how to get him in the game and make him relevant. 2 is that, and they've done this all year, so this is not fixable. 2 is that I think both of them are decent in high pressure situations. I think they're decent around fighting with numbers. But the mid gap they kind of need, I'm not sure will come out because he is more of a mage player. And 4, in around team fights and objective controls, VCS is just a much better region. And when it comes to high pressure games or like world games,
muito melhor. Caralho, que isso, mano? Eu vou ter que abrir a play do Cat pulando no meio de 4 caras de Tristana, mano?
Objectives are going to be super important. So then, Loud will have to outplay around side lane, but if you lose early, then side laning becomes a lot more difficult. So that's why, for me, Loud is 40-60 into game. You could even argue 35-65, but I think 40-60 is very fair. You could also argue the other way around, 45-55. But if Loud fix their issues, which is unlikely, given they play same way for 2 years, Loud can, and I stress can, I really stress can, 60-40 can. Is that fair? So that's it for my Gam analysis. The rest of the games look pretty similar, guys. You're going to see Livy either on aggressive champs early or players playing around him well. But you're going to see good objective or team fighting play. You're going to see solid lanes across the board. And you're going to see Kiaya create opportunities for top side. So we'll stop there. Thank you very much, guys. Hope you enjoyed that.
Caralho, parece que eu tomei tiro, mano. Pô, parece que eu tomei tiro depois desse vídeo. Tô fraco, mano. Tô desanimadinho, filho.